Hello everyone. Welcome back to LA, the ideal English school. Today we're going to focus on the past perfect tense, one of the 16 tenses. And we're also going to look at the active and passive voice of this tense. Well, let's get started. Let's look at all the 16 tenses again. The present simple tense, the present continuous tense, the present perfect tense, the present perfect continuous tense. The past simple tense, the past continuous tense, the past perfect tense, the past perfect continuous tense. The future simple tense, the future continuous tense, the future perfect tense, the future perfect continuous tense. The past future simple tense, the past future continuous tense, the past future perfect tense, the past future perfect continuous tense. Now let's look at the past perfect tense. Active voice, had taught. Passive voice, had been taught. The active past perfect tense is formed by using had plus past participle. Active voice, affirmative. First person singular. I had already gone to sleep when they arrived. First person plural. We had already gone to sleep when they arrived. Second person singular or plural. You had already gone to sleep when they arrived. Third person singular. Tom had already gone to sleep when they arrived. Third person plural. They had already gone to sleep when she arrived. Note that when you is used to refer to the person that you are speaking or writing to, it is singular, but when you is used to refer to the people that you are speaking or writing to, it is plural. The negative of the past perfect tense is formed by inserting not between had and past participle. I had seen him becomes I had not seen him, or I hadn't seen him, or I'd not seen him. I hadn't is preferred to I'd not. The interrogative of the past perfect tense is formed by putting had before the subject. You had seen him becomes had you seen him. The past perfect tense. Affirmative, I had finished all my work. Negative, I had not finished all my work. Interrogative, had I finished all my work? We had finished all our work. We hadn't finished all our work. Had we finished all our work? You had finished all your work. You hadn't finished all your work. Had you finished all your work? They had finished all their work. They hadn't finished all their work. Had they finished all their work? Eliza had finished all her work. Eliza hadn't finished all her work. Had Eliza finished all her work? He had finished all his work. He hadn't finished all his work. Had he finished all his work? It had finished all its work. It hadn't finished all its work. Had it finished all its work? The past perfect tense is used. 1. To talk about a past situation or activity that took place, before another past situation or activity, or before a specific point in the past. To say that one thing happened after another, we use the past perfect tense for the first action, and the past simple tense for the second action. For example, when I got there, he had already left his house. Means, first he left his house, and then, I got there. First action, past perfect, had left. Second action, past simple, got. When she had finished talking on the phone, she went straight to bed. The party had hardly started when she left. When I called him last night, he had already had dinner. When I arrived at the party, they had already gone home. At first I thought I'd done the right thing, but I soon realized that I'd made a big mistake. She wondered who'd sent her the mysterious email. The phone was ringing, but by the time she got indoors, it had stopped. The man sitting next to me on the plane was very nervous. He had never flown before. He was a complete stranger to me. I'd never seen him before. Up until that moment, I'd never believed in astrology. He still hadn't shown up at 4 p.m. yesterday. Two. To talk about a series of completed past actions that took place before another action in the past. Before you arrived, she had cleaned the house, shopped for groceries, and cooked an enormous meal. When we arrived, she had cooked dinner and set the table. 3. To show that something started in the past, and continued up to another action in the past. When I saw him, he had lived there for 5 years. They had had the car for 6 years before they sold it. We felt bad about selling the house because we had owned it for over 30 years. How long had you lived there before you moved to Jakarta? With, already, just, yet, and still, we use the past perfect tense, not the past simple tense. For example, the concert had already begun by the time we arrived. He was disappointed to find it already gone. She had just stepped into her office when the telephone rang. I'd just started to cook dinner when the phone rang. When she called me, I hadn't finished my homework yet. When I called him, he still hadn't finished his homework. When I got there, she still hadn't had dinner. With, after, before, or as soon as, to say that one event happened after another, we use either the past simple tense, or the past perfect tense for the first action, and the past simple tense for the second action. We do not have to use the past perfect tense for the first action. We can use the past simple tense for the first action and the second action because the order of events is already clear. For example, after Jeff had finished doing his homework, he went straight to bed. Or, after Jeff finished doing his homework, he went straight to bed. I went out with some friends after I finished my homework. We arrived after the play started. The play had started before we arrived. Or, the play started before we arrived. She cooked dinner before I got home. I had dinner before you came here. He went out as soon as he had finished his breakfast. Or, he went out as soon as he finished his breakfast. As soon as she finished talking on the phone last night, she went straight to bed. When clauses, always happen first when both clauses are in the past simple tense. When he saw me, he waved. Or, he waved when he saw me. Means, first he saw me, and then he waved. When clause. First action, past simple, saw. Main clause. Second action, past simple, waved. Notice the difference in meaning of these sentences. Both clauses are in the past simple tense. When he ended his speech, everyone left. Means, everyone left after he ended his speech. That is, first he ended his speech, and then everyone left. First action, past simple, ended. Second action, past simple, left. When clause, is in the past simple tense, and the main clause is in the past perfect tense. When he ended his speech, everyone had left. Means, everyone left before he ended his speech. That is, first everyone left, and then he ended his speech. First action, past perfect. Had left. Second action, past simple. Ended. The past perfect tense with the verb be as the main verb. The past participle of be must be used to form the past perfect tense when there isn't any other verb. The past perfect tense. Had, plus past participle. Now let's look at the verb be. Be is the base form. The present tense forms are, am, is, and are. The past tense forms are, was, and were. The past participle is, been. Let's take a look at the sentences below. The verb be is not used in the main sentences on the left because each of them already has a verb, but the verb be is used in the main sentences on the right because none of them has any other verb. The past perfect tense. I had already had dinner when you called me. I had already been there for 2 hours when he arrived. When I got to your house, you'd already left for work. Had you already been there long when he arrived? We'd already eaten dinner when she arrived. We'd been there for just a few days when he called us. When I arrived at the party, Jim had gone home. When I saw her, she'd been there for about an hour. When I met him, he'd worked as a salesman for 3 years. When I met him, he'd been a car salesman for 3 years. When I saw him, he'd lived there for 5 years. When I saw him, he'd been at that address for 5 years. The plane had already taken off when we got to the airport. When we saw the factory, it had been idle for months. Idle means not working or producing anything. The active and passive voice of the past perfect tense. Active sentence. The subject, or the doer of the action. I had, plus past participle. Had washed. The object, or the recipient of the action. My car. I had washed my car. The subject, or the doer of the action. Tom. Had, plus past participle. Had cleaned. The object, or the recipient of the action. The window. Tom had cleaned the window. Only transitive verbs can be used in the passive voice. The passive voice of the past perfect tense is formed by had, plus been, plus past participle. Passive sentence. The subject, or the recipient of the action. The window. Had, plus been, plus verb 3, or the past participle. Had been cleaned. By, plus the agent, or the doer of the action. By Tom. The window had been cleaned by Tom. The active voice is generally preferred to the passive voice. For example, I was hungry, because I hadn't had lunch. I didn't want to go to the movies with them because I had already seen the movie twice. I didn't know who he was. I'd never seen him before. When the phone rang, I'd already finished my homework. We had finished dinner and were waiting for the bill. She had written 3 books and she was working on the next one. He had already published 2 novels. The passive voice is used especially when we want to emphasize the object, or the recipient of the action, or when the doer of the action is unknown, unimportant, obvious, etc. Therefore, the doer of the action, or the agent is often omitted in the passive sentence. For example, the house was very dirty because it hadn't been cleaned for months. Had the house been renovated when you saw it? The last time I saw the hotel, it had been renovated. At 3 p.m. your car still hadn't been painted. If we want to show the agent, we use by, plus agent. For example, when I saw your car, it had already been painted black by Jim. When I saw the window, it had already been broken by a little boy. Now do this exercise. Directions: for each question, there are 2 or 4 choices, and only one of them is correct. Write down the correct answers on a piece of paper. You have 2 minutes to complete this exercise. Check your answers. Question 1. A. First action. When the teacher came in, all the children stood up. Came is the first action. Question 2. A. First action. When he ended his speech, everyone had left. Had left is the first action. Question 3. B. Second action. The play started before we arrived. Arrived is the second action. Question 4. B. Second action. The party had hardly started when she left. Left is the second action. Question 5. B. Second action. When he arrived, we had dinner. Had is the second action. Question 6. D. Hadn't had. I was hungry because I hadn't had lunch. Question 7. D. Hadn't been cleaned. The house was very dirty because it hadn't been cleaned for months. Question 8. A. Went. He went out as soon as he finished his breakfast. Question 9. C. Been painted. Had my car been painted black when you saw it? Question 10. C. Went. I went out with some friends after I finished my homework. Well, that's the end of this lesson. Thanks for watching. If you like this video lesson, please give it a thumbs up, share it, and subscribe to our channel.